So my amazing husband, Chad, thinks, how did I trick you into marrying me and how did I trick you into getting on this podcast?
Those are both great questions. I don't know. Well, I think I tricked you into marrying me. So
I don't know. Maybe you let me think that I was tricking you because that's usually how it works best.
Yeah, I don't know.
If I think it's my idea, it's a lot more likely to happen. So
yeah, it happened. It was good. So
yeah. So I remember, I'm going to go back. I don't have a lot of memories of my younger years. We were just talking about that. And I don't know if it's just that I'm really focused when I'm in the middle of something. And so I tune things out. But one of my clearest memories is the day that I met you. And I remember I was in a pretty tough spot. I was 8.5 months pregnant with my third child, a child that I had chosen to place for adoption. My life felt pretty bleak. I had struggled a little bit with addiction. It would get worse before it got better for me, but also I had been a single mother with 2 children. And I remember, so you met Kira. Kira's been on the podcast. You met Kira in college, and kind of crazy that you ended up at my house one night, and it was to see Kira and her boyfriend, who you were good friends with, Barry, right?
yeah, they actually they told me that I should come meet you.
Really?
Kira said, I've got a sister. She's beautiful. She's a lot of fun. She goes, but I don't know. She's really wild.
Wild.
She might be too wild for you.
Well, I was somehow. So, but I remember you knocked on the door and I opened it, and I actually remember what I was wearing. I was wearing these great big red pajamas. And I had been watching the O.J. Simpson trial just to give it a kind of a time frame because everyone knows when that happened. And the thing that I noticed about you was your goodness, your kindness, your smile, and your amazing blue eyes. And I remember thinking, man, it would be amazing if I could date someone like him. I don't know. Of course, always I'm looking at boys, right? But at that point, it just felt so far away that I could ever date someone like you. And after I had my son, David, that I placed for adoption, things got a lot worse for me. But I do remember that Kira and Barry came to the hospital and they were trying to provide some comfort for me. And Barry's like, what can I do to support you, Portia? And I go, would you set me up with your friend? Always looking for that, right? But like I say, things got worse before they got better. I'm sure that when we went on our first date, I'm sure that you didn't think, oh, I'm going to end up marrying this girl. But I know that it took a while. After I had David, I really struggled with addiction. You kind of watched that and how that would go. And eventually I hit that bottom, and I've shared that in other podcasts, and I'll talk more about it too with the kids. And then somehow we came back together, and I do remember telling you, I asked you, I share this a lot of times, what scared you the most about me? What did you say?
I said everything about you scared me.
Do I still scare you?
No.
Yeah.
You were beautiful and exciting and had a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, so I had someone ask me on a podcast, what do you think your husband liked about you? And I said, I think I was interesting. And he said, and exciting.
Yeah.
So we got married and started to build a life together. And I think what's amazing is that, first of all, I'm pretty sure your parents begged you not to marry me. Is that fair to say?
That's accurate, yeah.
I would have begged my kids not to marry me too. They weren't wrong. Oh,
yeah.
They just didn't see the end game.
Well, I mean, you love your kids. You want the best for them, and they didn't really know you, and they just knew the situation, and it was a hard situation.
It was a hard situation, yeah. So why'd you marry me?
Mostly because I loved you.
Oh, that's a good reason.
Yeah. I just like to be around you. I loved you. You're beautiful, have so much energy, and I just saw the best in you.
Yeah, you did.
So
you always have.
I was blinded.
Well, I prefer that I saw the best in you. Yeah. Not that your eyesight's great, but no.
No, not good.
So we got married, and you adopted Jason Shelby, and their lives have been difficult. Jason Shelby had really been through it. They're kind of amazing kids, but they had some pretty hard experiences, and that's a lot to take on. I didn't have any child support. There was no real support other than you and I, that was probably scary for you to marry someone with 2 kids, and you were just out of college. So
yeah, I wasn't, it's interesting. You learn, as we've had kids, I learned, you kind of grow with the kids through the pregnancy, through, and so to jump in late in the game, I was pretty selfish in hindsight. I think I just was. So it was, I had to learn how to be a parent fast track.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Maybe everyone does.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, like, I was so young when we were talking about this last night. I was 17 when I got pregnant with Jace. So he grew up with me. I didn't know what I was doing. Our youngest daughter is 17. We look at her and think, what in the world? How did that work? Yeah. But by this time, I was in my late 20s. So we got married. We bought that little house. First we were renting. We bought that little house. And I was working as a photographer for family. And then I started my own business. And you were working. And this is the good part, because I remember being grateful because I had been in some really dark places. Like, I knew how lucky I was to have you and what we had, because I hadn't had it. Like, that was something I always loved about you. I just loved your stability, and I loved your family. Like, I felt a little intimidated, honestly, because your parents were both school teachers. My parents didn't even care about school at all. Like, if I went to school or not, or graduated high school, none of that was important. I mean, my parents they were really creative and fun and outgoing, but the society's rules weren't our thing. And so I felt intimidated, but I was grateful for the strength that your family brought. Your dad and I kind of clashed a little bit, but your dad was a really good example to me. And I'm so grateful for the upbringing that you had. In fact, you grew up in Star Valley, Wyoming, which is outside of Jackson, which almost everybody knows someone from Star Valley or Afton.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And it's a beautiful place, and it's really peaceful. So what was that like for you? We'll jump back into that, your childhood.
I want to say it was perfect. Just, if you like to hunt and fish and outdoors, and just a lot of good people. I love Afton, Star Valley. It's a great place. So yeah. Friends, a few friends I keep in contact from there, and just a lot of great memories and good people. Yeah,
there is. We were recently up there, and the peace that you feel, it's beautiful, it's peaceful, and strength. We went to church up there, and I just looked around at everybody, and I'm like, there's just a goodness about it. Yeah. And I think that was a contributor to the strength that you've had throughout your life, Yeah,
it definitely contributed to it. I think when you're around, good people, strong people, you kind of, I don't know, take some of that on, even if you're not.
Oh, you were, though. And you were athletic, your family, that was a big thing. Your dad was really supportive, both your parents.
Yeah.
So you grew up doing all this sports stuff, and you were good at it. Everyone tells me, Chad was the best. He could shoot 3-pointers.
Well, it's easy to be good at it when your high school has like 10 kids.
No, you were good at it. You played college too. So you were good at it. And you're humble. So there's that too, which is something I struggle with, that I'm really grateful that you have, that we've been able to, hopefully I can glean some of that from you. So this charming childhood meets this crazy girl, and we get married and start to build a life. And I remember the first few years, it's just hard to be married. Like you say, we're young and trying to figure out. One of the things that I've been able to look back at is that I work really hard.
Yeah, you do.
So I jumped in and I was working really hard. And then we had Jackson. And I remember through my pregnancy, I was photographing weddings and I was working, doing school pictures, and I was tired.
Yeah.
And then we started building a home, which at the time made sense because our house was covered in negatives. Back then it was negatives from photography, and people were meeting us there, and our kids, we were just outgrowing that home, and the market was going up. So we decided to build a home in Highland. First I thought, I'll put the studio in the home. Then I moved the studio out, but we built the home. And then we had Sadie 18 months later, which wasn't planned, but I remember being pregnant with her, having a toddler, having 2 kids in elementary school, working the business, and you were working and traveling some at the time.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, so we moved into that house. Do you remember, that was our first house that we built, and it was just seriously the most, I remember waking up that morning in that house and we both just felt like we had arrived. Like it was like, we're living in a mansion.
Yeah. Just the brand new shower. It had 2 shower heads.
Right. It's crazy.
A great big room, a walk-in closet.
Oh, isn't that nuts? Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Whoa, how'd we get here? And I was kind of pushing, which is always the case. I was like, we need to build a house. And found the house I wanted to build. And I just remember, like, I had worked really hard as a photographer to make $30,000 to put down on that house. Like, I was working hard and saving my money. And it was scary. I think our payment was $1,800 a month, which now seems so silly. But at the time, it just felt overwhelming. And we had a kind of house full of kids. We had 2 kids in elementary and 2 young ones. And
happened fast.
Yeah, it did. Like, it seems like a chunk of time, but it really was a few years.
Right.
And then I had to hire people to help with the kids. The business was growing to the point, I think with photography, I maxed out about 200 weddings a year.
Is that all?
Yeah. So many.
I could never figure out why you just work so hard all the time.
I know.
5 a.m. to 12 at night every day.
Yeah. My parents gave me that, I guess, but it needs to be balanced out somehow. Still working on that. Prison is, I mean, we'll jump into prison, but honestly, prison was probably the most relaxing time of my life. Relaxing, for sure. Painful, but like, I still got up every morning at 5 a.m. So just so everybody's clear, I still did as much work as I could find to do in prison.
You had places to be, things to do.
Officers used to laugh and say, why does Louder run around like that? And my boss would say, I think that's what she does in the free world. So she just thinks she has to do it here. Oh, goodness. Yeah. So we're living in Highland. We think we've got a mansion, which to us it is. And I think, and about that time I relapsed. I had a back surgery. And it was scary. I remember feeling really scared and overwhelmed. I felt, because I pushed myself so hard, I just thought, I had been on street drugs before. And so this time around, I'm like, well, I'm just like everybody else. I'm just using these pain pills, which
the doctor prescribes them.
Right. And it really messes with my judgment. And I've learned that. I've learned that when I use substances, anything really, but with pain pills, it's like I start feeling invincible and I start thinking this is the best version of me. And any kind of work ethic I had now turns into grandiosity. And I think I have to keep going and build something, and and that's what happened. And do you remember that time? Like, I feel like during that time, you just kind of were completely overwhelmed. Like at first I bought lots and stuff. And then at a certain point, you just put your hands up and said, I don't even know what to do anymore.
Yeah, it was early on. I think we took a second on the house and gave it, we went over to this guy's house and he had a poker table in the front room and a stripper pole. He was really young. And I just going, this is such a bad decision. We gave him $30,000 and
to invest,
whatever. I couldn't get my arms around any of it, but you were pretty
determined.
And I thought that was going to be a good thing. Maybe it would have been.
Well, anyway, I threatened his life to get the money back. Do you remember that?
Yeah, like 3 weeks later, I think it settled in.
I realized what I'd done. I was like, give it back. Yeah. I need it back. And he's like, oh, it's invested in something. I'm like, well, you better give it back.
Yeah, uninvest it.
Uninvest it. Yeah, that happened before I even got involved in anything, really. I just really saw it as this opportunity.
I'd getting away, huh?
Yeah, everybody was involved, right? There was this energy behind it. And I think my parents had always bought homes and sold, like not on this level, but they had made money moving up. And I was like, I'm not going to be left behind.
And I felt like building the house in Highland was a huge win. I felt that was a stretch. Like, it was a pretty big house. The payment was, double whatever we were. Yeah. So it felt like a big stretch. And so to go from there to more and more. Yeah.
I don't know.
And the stripper pole.
That's concerning, right?
Yeah.
So I remember what happened first, really, before I even got involved in that, was there were some lots behind our house that I went and put $2,500 earnest money down on because they were moving up fast. And I said, I want to lock 2 of those they opened a new development behind our house. And you told me that was the dumbest thing. You're like, you could lose that money if you don't close in 30 days, you're going to lose that $2,500. So I ran over and got my check back. Do you remember what happened after that?
They like doubled.
Yeah, they doubled. Yeah, that's a big deal. I was so mad. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm never listening to you again. I could have just made enough to pay off our house. I was so upset. And then I was off to the races. I was like, oh, I'm not going to let that happen again. And I just jumped in. And I've shared on other episodes, and we'll probably talk more about it, but it was so weird. Like real estate, it wasn't like I went, okay, I'm going to just go get involved in real estate fraud today. It was like, there were a whole bunch of people that seemed really successful that were buying these houses and borrowing a bunch of money against them to invest in other things. And when I was introduced to it the first time, both of the people seemed very credible, and it still felt off to me. Like, I don't think there was a time that I didn't go, it's weird. Like, why would I want to over borrow on a house? Why is the appraisal so much higher if the house is only worth this? And to give you an idea of what that was, I was in the middle of a lot of real estate deals that were overinflated. The values were overinflated. We got really high appraisals, and banks lent a lot more money, and there was a big real estate conspiracy going on at the time.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that. It felt like everyone was aware of it, but it definitely felt like, I've talked to psychologists about this because the government required it. And one lady looked at me and she said, it sounds really risky, whether or not you knew it was illegal. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you did a whole bunch of these. It sounds really risky. And it was like for me to jump in. And that was really the problem. I had put a whole bunch of lots, which you told me not to do, under contract. This time I was going to do it regardless, put all of our home equity into that. And then I was upside down. Like I had to keep making hard money payments, which is high interest. And so when somebody came to me with an equity deal and I was in that compromised situation, I jumped in, and then it just, oh, well, welcome to the table. The cat is here. he's the guest, the uninvited guest. But so you, during this time, we had these young kids, and I remember telling you, like, Chad, you need to quit your job and take care of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a big turning point for you.
That was a big turning point. Yeah. I love my job. I did marketing for a boat and RV, a bank that did boat and RV loans. And so I was dealing with people who were buying, fun stuff, toys.
Yeah.
I traveled a little bit, and I loved the people I worked with, and I liked that job a lot. So, but I could see that my kids needed a parent home, because Portia was going 100 miles an hour in every direction. And so, decided to, I think I told him I was, told him Portia was going to work, and my boss said, so you're retiring? And I go, oh, I guess. Just call it taking care of my kids.
Yeah.
So that was hard. Yeah.
Really hard. And I think, I remember you were crying. Like you're like, I don't know. I was
talking to Dawn.
You were really emotional.
I didn't want to do it. But
you didn't want to do it.
Yeah. And then the reality set in of, I like to golf. And so anytime you golf with anybody else, it's the first question, what do you do? And I just felt weird. I just take care of the kids.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I had to provide this explanation. Well, I used to do this and I used to do that. And it was a big adjustment for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever told you I'm sorry that I did that to you.
You have.
Okay, good. I am
Thanks.
sorry. Yeah. I know that was hard, and I didn't understand it. I didn't have any, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So.
I don't think I understood it either, but.
Yeah. So.
Here we are.
So you started taking care of the kids, and I kept on going, and things got almost like there was this hysteria to it. Because at this point I'm upside down and I feel like I got to keep going. And people are showing up at the house night and day to, where's Portia? We got to close this deal. We got to do this. We got to do that. And started hearing that I was under federal investigation. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember my brother calling, and he had a friend that worked at a title office and said, hey, you guys are in big trouble. And I kind of poo-pooed it. I'm like, what do what? Just because some title person in Davis County said, and there was apparently there was some legitimacy to that.
Apparently so, right? Yeah. So And during this time, I would say you were probably just very checked out and angry and depressed.
That would probably be accurate. Yeah.
We started to struggle.
Yeah.
I started hiring attorneys to try to figure out what was going on. I had no idea it would get a lot worse. But at that point, attorneys are telling me, you're not that important. I'm mapping out what I'm doing. And they're like, you're the little guy. It's not illegal. It's really smart. Well, it might be don't do it anymore.
Yeah, a little gray.
And I actually remember the first time we went together. At this point, we had another baby. So we have...
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, right, it would be a great time to have another baby, huh?
Well, we weren't...
With all this going on.
Yeah, for real.
Add to it was just so crazy. And then, yeah.
And that was really hard for me. The pregnancy was really hard.
I can't imagine.
It was super hard because I had
we weren't doing great.
We weren't doing well. Our marriage wasn't great. And being pregnant, I was scared and overwhelmed and sad. I don't think I've ever felt so depressed. And then we had CJ. She was early. I was pretty distressed. People are still showing up at our house trying to close deals. I'm hiding. I'm crying. I'm like, make him go away. It was really rough.
Yeah, it was.
And I remember going to the attorney, to Greg Scortis' office, and you said, Greg just said something like, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. And I remember you saying, I need a little more than that. At this point, we have no idea that they're going to include you in anything. It's just me, and you're going, she's my wife. Can you give me a little more than that? And he's like, well, you guys just need to slow down. And she's not that important. It was just kind of very minimized at that point for us.
Yeah.
And then the FBI shows up at our house. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You don't forget?
Yeah. Forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have this clear picture of opening the door, having a 3-month-old baby in my arms and having you stand there and having them look at me and say, Chad, you got to figure out where you're going to stand on this because she's going to go to prison. And if you stand by her, you could get wrapped up in a conspiracy. You got to figure out what you're going to do. You better get an attorney. And I remember feeling like everything that I've ever worked for, you're trying to take from me. It was the most terrifying feeling for me. And for you too.
Pretty ominous.
Yeah, it was scary. So it was really scary. So then we call back the attorneys and say, now we have a bigger problem. And because there is an investigation. Up to this point, it's just kind of like talking about it. And I remember when... Greg said, well, why don't we set up a meeting with the prosecutor and see what's really going on? And they thought it would just be, let's go talk.
Yeah.
And when I showed up, the whole state, like the Division of Real Estate, the state, the feds, everybody's there. There's FBI. And she's like, it was Greg's wife, who was also an attorney. And she goes, let's go out and have a conversation. So we walk outside and she's like, I said, what do you want me to do? And she said, well, they're going to want a mea culpa, which I didn't know what that was. It's a Catholic, I'm sorry. I was like, what does it mean? You just say you're sorry, just say you're sorry. We'll see how it goes. And when we sat down, you weren't there.
No.
But the FBI agents were pounding on the table and saying, this is serious. And they were asking questions about things that I really wasn't involved in. There was another great big thing going on in Utah that they thought I was involved in that I wasn't. And they were kind of assumed that everybody was a straw buyer. And I said, no, they're actually investors buying the house. I'm just in the middle. And I wasn't answering the way they wanted. And it got ugly. And eventually Rebecca said, let's end this. And we walked out. And I remember feeling so physically sick, I couldn't even breathe. I think I went home and I laid in bed for 2 days. And I just cried. I just thought, this is, it was hard. And I remember Rebecca calling me on Monday and said, I'm sorry, you're going to go to prison. And she said, maybe I can get you a 2-year deal. And that was so scary.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that have been a blessing? Now looking back, like what, Rebecca, make the deal. But
at the time we came from, 3 months earlier. Oh, you got nothing to worry about. You're not that important.
Right. So. And this just drug on.
Yeah.
I mean, this went on for years, like these real estate deals, 2004, 2005. And this CJ was born in 2007. We're in 2008. They hadn't even indicted yet. They're just investigating.
Yeah.
And then I had another attorney I met, and he's like, you're not guilty. You're not guilty. And what did that cost me to hear? $100,000. Every time we're taking our retirement at this point, anything that I can do to try to survive this, which made it worse. It actually makes me sick to even think about, because what ended up happening was eventually they started wrapping you into it too.
When you didn't play along, they upped the ante, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They did. So people will ask me, like, did he know? What did he know? I don't know. Like, you knew it wasn't good. At this point, you definitely knew it wasn't good. But when did you ever think it was illegal?
I don't know if I thought it was illegal. I just thought it was a bad idea. So I remember one of the first houses we bought, a title agent said, now you need to make sure and have the utilities switched and do this and that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, in case someone comes to look at your deal. And I'm like, I just didn't know. That kind of gave me a sense that
it wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know why he was so concerned and coaching me and guiding us through that. So, I guess that was a bit of not a red flag, but maybe an orange flag.
Yellow?
Yeah, yellow. But
it got redder over time.
Basically, it just seemed like a bad idea to borrow more money than the house was worth.
Right. You didn't know all the behind the scenes. I was doing all that. And I think that too, at this point, I'm so far in. I've got these, I am so far in. It's like, well, what are we going to do? And I think for you, at least from my view of looking back, you just felt so helpless.
Right.
Like it's outside of my understanding. It's way bigger than anything. The other thing that, I had really powered through. I'd come back from hard things. I'd built a photography business. So there's probably some of Portia figured out.
Yeah, there was. I did have, I did have trust and faith that if anyone could pull it out, you would. I think I didn't really want to or take into account the addiction aspect of it. That's just kind of changes the dynamics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I had been sober when I was building a photography company, but my addiction is a huge piece. And I have people ask about that, and I probably need to do just an episode on it, but my addiction was a real plague, really, really hurt me. And it's kind of my superpower now. I know this about myself. So years go by, hard years. Our marriages were really, really struggling. And at a certain point, financially, you're like, I just have to go do something. I'm going to go to work. And I don't even know what to do. It's like, we've got this indictment hanging over our head. You can't really go back to work in banking. It's a federal case. And so you decide, I'll just get a CDL and I'll go to work. I'll go drive a truck, which is so outside of your, right? And me, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to call a friend and we're going to start a trucking company, which we did in Montana during the oil rush. And you decide, I remember the first time you drove up there in a truck and you called me and said, I'm driving right back. I am not staying up here. This is crazy. I'm not staying here. And came home and I said, go back, go work. The thing that I appreciate was that I was able to spend some time with our kids before I go to prison. So you went and worked, but you were gone and it was painful.
Months at a time sometimes,
And that was really, really hard. I remember you calling me and you missed our kids. You'd been raising our kids and Jackson had football and that's not something I talk a lot about, but that time, and in a way, I wonder if that time helped you understand more what I would go through when I got to prison, because you were really cut off.
Yeah, my cell was a truck.
Yeah,
a Kenworth.
Right.
Because there was no place. It was just dirt roads, and out in the oil field, it was very
isolated.
Very isolated. So. Which I liked a lot of,
You're like, I don't mind.
Yeah, isolation can be good, but it was a little bit too much maybe.
Well, at this point, you were really angry at me. I remember there was this time. And I felt your dad had basically given me a few lectures and told, your dad's a great guy, but he was just really so frustrated. This is not what Chad was meant to do. You have screwed up everything. And he wasn't wrong. And I remember calling you and saying, let's just get divorced. Because it's too much. It's too much for you. I'm tired of feeling like I've ruined your life. I called your sister too, and I said, I've ruined everything, and I'm just so tired. And she is amazing. And she goes, Portia, you're so wrong. Don't listen to Eldon. Don't listen. She's like, you guys are supposed to be married. Chad loves you, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's true. It definitely caused me to just reevaluate everything. I know that up to that point, I had been pretty committed to standing behind you, I'll stick around. But at that point, I realized that you needed someone to stand in front of you or beside you at least, not just behind you. I couldn't hold you out to the wolves. So I kind of recommitted to that I was gonna, stick it out, that we were gonna make it work. And, I think that was a real turning point for our marriage. I don't think it fixed everything immediately, but I think you could feel that,
oh yeah,
hopefully that I wasn't standing behind you.
No,
standing in front of you.
I consider you like not just a hero, but like your sacrifice of being willing to love me in my weakest place and choose to see a future. I remember when you came home, you said, I love you and I want to work it out. Will you give me a chance to? And here I am like in the deepest hole. And you told me, you said, I can see our life someday. It's really good. We'll get through this. There's a future for us that looks really good. We'll be in a house someday, a little house. And I said, are you sure I'm in there with you? Like, you sure it's me? It isn't something else? And you said, no, it's you. I love you. And we'll do it together.
It took a long time, huh?
It took a long time.
I don't think I thought it would take that long.
No,
I was thinking, 6 months down the road, everything.
Oh my goodness. It took, there were so many prayers and blessings and things that people offered that I thought would happen much sooner, but they have come about. But it's taught me that the long game, and it's the process of all that brings us to the beauty on the other side. But we still had some pretty hard days. They indicted us, me, you. Sure
did.
Yeah. And at that point, then it's real bad because now, I remember I had this attorney and I said, what is my defense? What is my defense? And at the end of the day, like right before we're going to go to trial. But the risk was the government had told us that they would put you and me in prison at the same time, that we would lose our kids. And I remember telling my attorney, what am I supposed to do? And he goes, well, we're going to point to Chad because Chad is he had a finance degree and you're uneducated. And I remember thinking, what? Did I pay you for that? Like, what are you talking about? I was looking at him and I was like, you're fired. What in the heck? He should have been fired a long time ago, but it left us in a really, to me, by the time, like we were 3 weeks out on trial and I'm sure you remember, we were at the federal courthouse and in the courtroom next to ours, we're there for a hearing prior to going to trial. So I'm planning. And you know me, like I'm going to fight to the death. And this man, the marshal, shot a guy in the courtroom next to ours. He stood up with a pencil in his hand and it was a big thing. Somehow in Portia fashion, the whole courthouse gets locked down and I walk out the front door with the guy on the gurney and start talking to the news. I remember you walking out and grabbing my hand and saying, we're leaving now. And so I was on the 12 o'clock news explaining that the marshals had shot a man in the courthouse, which was so bad because my lawyers were like, why would you do that? I'm like, why not?
They asked.
They're mad at you. The government's mad. I said, I'm mad at them too. She's like, be at the courthouse tomorrow morning. And they revoked my pretrial release and took me to the county jail for a week. And then I pretty much had a full-on mental breakdown at that point. Couldn't even talk by the time you picked me up. I remember being, if anything, probably the reality of what we were facing was so serious when I got to the county jail that I knew I needed to plead guilty. I knew that, because up to that point, I just had not seen the truth of the situation. I knew it was serious, but I had fought my way through everything in my life. I didn't know how to surrender. I just didn't know, and came home, and then they ended up locking me back up for a mental evaluation, which was 3 months of a nightmare of being transferred around and chains and shackles, and that whole experience was just terrible. And then by the time the end of that came, I pled guilty to get out of those conditions. And I remember your attorney saying, don't plead guilty until we get the deal for Chad, which would have been smart of me to do. Yeah. But I
remember coming to visit you and you were not well.
No, I was not well.
It wasn't you. You were.
I was so lost.
You were lost. Yeah. You couldn't talk. And when you did talk, it didn't make sense. And you were.
Well, it didn't help. Like I was in a really vulnerable situation, more vulnerable than maybe ever in my life, very broken. And the conditions that I was in were really bad.
Yeah.
So there was a combination of all the years of everything, the fear, the weight of that. And your strength and goodness was, I honestly don't know how I came back from that except for that. And our faith, like there was faith on both of our parts, that the promises that we made to each other, our marriage, you know. I think that you stood by me in my weakest state, and that was powerful. There's power in that love. And by the time I got out, I was still pretty shook up, but at least I knew my name. At least I knew my name. And, you know, I work in mental health now, and I honestly think that I needed to go through that to understand where other people are coming from and the support I've been able to provide to my own family. So it was a low, though. It was a low that I don't know how many people have to get to and can come back from. It was really bad.
Yeah, I thought, how is she coming back? How does this pass? How does she get through this? How does this end? You know, because you see people walking down the street that are.
And I was not far off. I was in that zone.
In that state.
You said, take the meds. Whatever they give you, take them.
How does that change, you know?
Yeah, it was a really, really
pretty scary.
It was very scary, yeah. So after I pled guilty, I came home for 6 months, and then we walked back into that federal courthouse. And up to that point, you were planning on going to trial still.
You were planning on me to go into trial still.
Maybe. I don't know. At this point, everything changed the day that I was sentenced.
It was just whatever. It wasn't going to end well, whether I pled or I go try, whatever.
Yeah.
Just everybody let me know what to do, and we'll do that.
So I remember the day that we walked into the federal courtroom. I remember going, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I remember looking at you and our kids and knowing it was going to take a really long time until things were going to be okay, and feeling so much sorrow, so much sadness. I just started to cry. And it was so odd because I went from thinking, I might get a year of probation to knowing they were going to sentence me to the maximum, the 7 years that day. I knew it before he said it, and I just started to cry. And the judge wasn't happy with me, probably for a good reason. I've been pretty belligerent. And not only did he sentence me to 84 months in federal prison, he wanted the marshals to take me into custody. So he's like, all right. And everybody started to the courtroom got a little bit, like even the prosecutor said, don't do that. We didn't ask for that. And my lawyer's like, please don't do that. And our kids are standing there. And the judge says, I will hear from Mr. Louder. And you got up and you just said, please don't do that to her. And I remember looking at you and feeling so blessed to be your wife. Like there was a level of power in that for me that I knew we would get through it together. And we walked out together that day, and our life has not ever been the same. It was a really painful turning point.
Yeah, it sure was.
So the judge gave me 8 weeks. The older kids took the younger kids home, and I don't think I could even talk for a long time. Just remember being shocked and just the reality of what I had done and how serious it was, and I don't know, and how foolish I had been that I had traded something as important as time with you and our kids for money. It just felt like I had been so tricked. And that 8 weeks, we had to figure out some things. We had to figure out whether or not you were going to plead guilty, right?
Yeah.
Which we decided. I remember coming home and Sadie saying, is Dad going to prison too, Mom? And I said, no, he's not going to. And she goes, but I don't believe you because everything you said happened. It wouldn't. And then I came to you and said, you have to plead guilty. Because we knew if you pled guilty, I felt like it was me. I was responsible. You know what I mean? So yeah. I didn't want you to have to take that hit, but we were so far down the road. And also I looked at it and said, well, if we go to trial and they put us both in jail, we can't risk that. And they had told us that if we would plead, then I could do my time and then you could do your time when I got home, which was ominous. At that point, they were planning to sentence you to prison. And we were like, okay, we'll just take whatever. And it was sad. It was really sad. We had that 8 weeks to say goodbye to each other, to the kids, and also we had to figure out. And I remember walking into your lawyer's office. You were crying and I was crying, and he was like, I am so sorry. He's like, this is not a good choice, but it's the best choice under this circumstance. And you pled guilty. They gave you a felony, which has changed your life. We didn't know if you would serve prison time or not. And then 8 weeks later, you drove me to Dublin, California. Do you remember anything about that?
Going to California?
Yeah.
I remember thinking on the drive home, 14 hours by myself, this was a really bad idea. I should have brought somebody man, that's a lot of time with my thoughts. And I don't know, it was hard to drop you off knowing that I'm not going to see you for 7 years. Yeah, that's what I remember. Just the drive home was not pleasant.
Yeah. And my heart was so broken I couldn't even breathe. Like I can't even, there's not even words for that level of brokenness when I walked in. I don't know why you can know something, but until you experience it, you just don't know it like that. Like I thought I was prepared, but there is no way to prepare for that. And people call all the time, what should we prepare for? I'm like, nothing.
Yeah,
you have
nothing
to
I
just,
can tell you,
nothing.
No website, no consultant, nothing. You just got to go through it.
Yeah. So you came home. Yeah. And you had a lot of pieces to pick up. And I was a mess. I go to prison and I'm so heartbroken. I can't even breathe. And I'm trying to power through that. And I'm calling you. And I remember a couple times you telling me, I was so angry at the government. And you're like, this isn't helping you, Portia. This won't help you. I remember telling you, you should leave. You should just divorce me and go. Like, there's no reason for you to stay. And you were always so kind to me. You were like, Portia, I love you. There's nobody better than you. Yeah. You're the best there is. How could I ever be with anyone else? And I was just like, I am sitting in federal. Makes you a hero.
Not so much.
Yeah.
We had 5 kids and I had nowhere to go.
It's so funny that you say that because I spoke at this women's conference recently and everybody always says, oh, your husband's amazing. And afterward, she said, I said, yeah, he loves me a lot. And she goes, yeah, and you stuck him with a bunch of kids. Where's he going to go with that? I was like, I like this other story better. I like the one where he loves me. Both are true.
Mostly I love you. See the end.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
It is. It's good.
Couldn't focus on the task at hand though. That was pretty ominous.
Yeah. So financially we're devastated. I'm in a state a long ways away. You end up getting a job like $12, $13 an hour. You got a felony. You've got a whole house full of kids and you're trying to take care of kids and you're basically living in a neighbor's basement. No, you are living in a neighbor's basement now, basically. Trying to rebuild, credit shot, financially we're like, I can't imagine how you did it.
I can't either.
I can't imagine how you did it. I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah, I don't know. Day at a time for sure. Because it seemed pretty ominous at the time and it seems pretty ominous now, but going through it, you just
keep going.
Yeah. Get everybody to school and put a Mountain Dew in their lunch. And
you did do that with the kids. You're like, let's all just have a Mountain Dew.
Right. Just, oh yeah, you need lunch. Here you go. One for you, one for you, one for you.
Oh.
So anyway.
Yeah. That was hard.
Yeah. Crazy hard.
Can't imagine. So I remember the first time you came out to visit me with the kids and a girl that had done 20 years in prison, she's like, boy, your husband's solid. Like people could just see your strength. Like your husband.
The donuts. That's what that was.
No, it's just your goodness. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that visit, but man, it made me think I should never have you come again. It was like heartbreaking for me to have you guys come.
Hard to leave.
So hard to leave. Every time it scared me. Like I was so excited to see you, but I knew how painful it would be when you left. Yeah. And I would have you pray with me, anything that I could do to get comfort. And it scared me. The pain was so painful when you would leave.
Yeah, it was hard.
Unless you've been to prison. I mean, you can imagine, and I have women say, oh, I could have never done it. And I'm like, but what was our choice? We've talked about this. People are like, I can't believe you didn't give up. We're like, that was an option? Yeah. There was a give up box? We would have done that one. Yeah, show us where to sign up for the give up, right? We were too low. We had to climb ladders to get to give up.
Yeah, for real.
You could have walked away. And you had lots of people tell you to do it. Could have walked away and started.
Yeah, I did. Man, my own family.
Right.
You just need to go.
Yeah, which is understandable. I would have probably.
It is understandable.
So why'd you stay?
Realistic, because I love you, and I thought that I just knew that we'd get through it. I don't know how. I was probably just naive or wishful thinking, but
well, it worked.
Fair, yeah,
yeah. I love you so much.
Yeah, I love you. Pretty amazing, crazy story.
Yeah, I know, right? Every time we tell it.
Yeah.
So about halfway through, I finally got honest and said, hey, Chad, I did this and I am so sorry. And looked at our kids and said, this was me. Please forgive me. And I remember I asked you to write me a letter to tell me everything I'd done to hurt you. I was so scared to get that letter. I was just like, oh, no. And the counselor called me and said, there's a letter from your husband here. And I went in there just physically sick, so scared. And I read it and it was nothing but, I love you. This hurt me. I think the thing that hurt you the most was that I didn't plead guilty earlier because it really affected your career and that you picked up a felony. And, but you just said how much you loved me. You're just.
I do love you.
Yeah. I remember too, your love was a great strength to me when I was in prison. Like I felt it, and all the girls felt it. They were just like, gosh, your husband. And everyone called you good guy, Chad. You were like the solid guy. Everybody would be like, what'd Chad say? What's going on out there? What'd Chad say?
Just because I had access to the internet. You could look things up.
Because you were trustworthy. Yeah. They're like, who does that, right? And I remember a girl coming into prison that knew she was going to the prison I was at, so she'd reached out to you to ask questions about me. And the first day she came in, we ate breakfast together, and she goes, your husband loves you so much. And I just started to cry. I'm like, his love for me is sacred. Like it was such a strength to me to feel that much love. More than anything, your love for me has given me such confidence in who I am. And you saw that the good in me long before I knew who I was. And that is such a powerful thing. I hope that anybody could understand is that when you see the best in somebody, they rise to it. And I have experienced that. There is no Portia. Like I would not be even still standing without you. So I hope you know, like I know you know how much I love you, but it's like eternal, the way that you love me. And it's a gift that God gave me that I probably never deserved, but I'm trying to live worthy of because, it's eternal.
Yeah, it is. It's bigger. I feel like it's bigger than us.
It is. Then I get the people all the time that say, now he had a girlfriend, right? Like you told him to have a girlfriend while you were gone, right?
Who told him that?
Yeah, he never got the memo. People just can't imagine that you waited and that you would stand by me, which is kind of shocking. But, and I always say, oh, Chad would never do that because he wouldn't be dishonorable to himself. Like as much as he loves me, it isn't even because he wouldn't do it because of who he is.
Yeah.
Maybe that I wasn't worthy of it, but I have become so. But I'm just saying, it's crazy that people think that you just have to be, either have a physical relationship with someone that you, like, I felt so close to you. The letters that we wrote, and we didn't talk that often, 4 phone calls a week, 15 minutes each. And I lived for those calls. I felt so connected to you through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
me too.
I think people would not, if they knew how sacred it was, that what we shared, they would understand that there is no way that I would ever do anything. Or they'll think, oh, you were in prison, you had a girlfriend. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I would never do something but of course they say, well, yeah, but you committed fraud. And I say, yep, I did. And all day long, as bad as that was, and as much as I regret it, I would rather be faithful to my husband. Like that's a higher value for me. So I guess I have a little bit of hustle in me, just a little bit. But so by the time I came home, the thing that I share a lot, and you've been with me when I do, is that I felt really good about myself. It was like the coolest thing. I felt like my life had been restored. Since I was a young girl, I had all these crazy things happen, and for the first time, I felt pure. I felt like I had been purified through the pain and the process. I was so excited to walk out of that prison and see you. It felt like I was getting married, but 1,000 times better. Like because of all that we had been through.
Yeah. Well, it was exciting we just had been apart for a long time. I mean, we'd seen each other with the kids for a weekend or whatever, but it was exciting you had really changed, for the good. And you could see it just as you walked out. Your countenance was just bright, and it was pretty cool.
It was really cool just to hold your hand.
The whole way home.
I know. I was so excited. I still love to hold your hand.
Except we couldn't find a Cafe Rio in Las Vegas.
I know. It's so funny that people ask, what was your first meal? I'm like, I was so overwhelmed and nervous. Yeah. And you're like, what do you want?
What time do we have to be there? We can't be late. They're going to arrest you. And so
I had to go to a halfway house in Utah, which that's a whole nother thing. People always want to know, and we'll talk more about it on other videos because it's really not worth talking about today. But I had to go to a halfway house.
Yeah.
And so you picked me up. We were driving back to Utah, and I would get to hold your hand. And I'm just going to keep holding your hand. And you wanted to make sure I got my first meal. Like what I wanted.
To be good. Yeah.
Right. I said, well, you're like, what do you want, Portia? What do you want? And I said, I don't know. I eat almonds and I can't get vegetables very often. So could you bring me some vegetables? And I love strawberries. So you brought me a pack of strawberries and some flowers. And then you're like, well, you can have whatever you want. But I was so overwhelmed with decisions that I said, let's just go to McDonald's.
Well, my phone wasn't. I was trying to pull up the directions to Cafe Rio, and it's taking us to some weird. And I'm like, and you were getting stressed that we weren't going to be there on time, and so the golden arches just presented themselves.
The golden arches. You know what, though? I've heard other people respond on social media, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I did when I left prison. My first meal was McDonald's, because it's so overwhelming, and it's just, you know what you're going to get, right?
Right.
So,
and you haven't had it for 7 years. So.
Yeah. So I served 5. We thought, it took us half my prison sentence to even realize I would have to. I mean, I was in denial at first. I'm like, somebody's going to get me out of here, But 7-year sentence, people have questions. I served 5. Then we came home, and it was exciting. And I've been home now for 6 years.
Hard to believe.
Yeah. What's the best part, the hardest part, the worst part?
Of all of it? Or of being home, or right now?
I don't know.
I think the best part is the endings, or I love where we're at right now. I love you. I love our kids. I think we've got, things are going really well. So the power of restoration is real. It takes a lot of time, though. I always had faith that it would happen. I guess, when I told you that I saw us having a house, and I didn't expect it to be 20 years down the road, but
yeah,
it happened. It's happening. So
yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
And I wonder how much your faith played a part in that, because you saw it before I could, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
I love that too. I love where we're at. I tell you all the time, you're a really good husband. I don't think I'm that good of a wife, because it's kind of the Portia show. I remember when I came home, I started working at drug treatment, and the girls there like, are you a good wife to Chad? And I said, not that good. Like, I don't cook. I probably could be better. And they're like, then why does he love you so much? And I said, because Chad loves who I am to the world.
That's fair.
Yeah. The girls are like, oh, that's so sweet. You're so remarkable, and you don't know it. Like, you're humble and remarkable.
Mm. Well, thanks. I don't know what remarkable means, but
it's you. They should have your picture in the dictionary. Yeah. I tell people in prison all the time that anyone can live worthy of the job or the relationship. And when people say, you're really lucky Chad waited, because that happens all the time, right? Like, we go to speak somewhere, and the girl's like, I want to hear from Chad. We just were at the county jail, and the guys were like, what comments do you have? And you're just sitting there in the back, and they're like, I just want to say, Chad, you're amazing. But I'll tell them, yeah, but I was worth the wait. Like,
absolutely,
I worked hard to be worth the wait. I'm still working hard to be worth the wait, though.
Yeah. I think while you were in prison, you worked a lot harder at improving yourself than you changed a lot. I don't feel like I changed that much. You made really good use of that time. Yeah.
You didn't have to change that much. You've always been pretty amazing.
I don't know.
I had a lot of work to do.
You did it and then some, because you're amazing.
Well, I love you.
Love you.
I don't know how I tricked you into marrying me or tricked you to get on the podcast, but I'm grateful that you did both of those things. The podcast, just because I want people to know.
I think the podcast is more amazing, because I was pretty determined not to do this again. So here we are.
Here we are. I know. And I'll have people on social media that are like, don't make him do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Thank you.
Well, I love you. That's all. And thank you for being here today. Okay?
You're welcome.
We'll probably get you back.
Is this the last time we do it?
No, Chad. This is the first time. We'll see what happens. For a while it is.
For a while.
It's been a 2-year break since the last one. This one's better.
For a while it is.
Yeah, for a while. Okay. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us for the Living Louder podcast and listening to the amazing Chad Louder story.